My kids don't need their father in their life. If the quality of your happiness as a single mother is tested on a constant basis, can you make the decision that the children do not really need him around? If the way that he treats you is detrimental to your mental and emotional health, do you have to make that decision? I was married to my children's father and I had been with him since I was 12 years old. After making the decision to divorce my ex-husband, he was very emotionally and mentally abusive to me. I used to make the excuse all the time, like, my kids need their father, they need their father. But at what cost? I used to get so angry and I used to go into these deep, dark spaces every time I had to deal with him. By the time my kids came home to be with me, I'm depleted emotionally. It even went so far that I would talk badly about my kid's father in front of them. And then I had to make the hardest decision that I really did not want to make. After sitting and thinking to myself, this is not what I want for me. If I have to continuously allow myself to be damaged in such a way, how much good am I going to be for my kids? And as a single mom, of course, we're looking around to all the women that are around us, whether they're married or maybe they have children and maybe them and their children's father aren't together. But the co-parenting goes well for them. And I never saw myself being a single mom, literally with their father out of the picture. I never saw this coming. But when I tell you I am the happiest I have ever been with him outside of the picture. Are my kids sad about this sometimes? Absolutely. I'm sure they think about it quite often. But am I my best self with them? Absolutely. They get a better quality of a mother from me because I'm not being abused. I'm happy. My spiritual relationship with God is amazing. There are a lot of mothers and a lot of single mothers out here that sacrifice the quality of their happiness when it comes to their children just to have the children's father around. I refuse to be one of them. Now, I don't know what the future may bring. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe someday we will come to a place where we can get along, where I can respect him and he can respect me. And we can co-parent like adults and be the best version of ourselves for our children. But until then, it ain't happening.
To make the claim that all children don't need their fathers is a little extreme and kind of inconsiderate for me because I believe as a dad that it's a father's role to give identity to their children. And when you don't have a father doing that, you will now have the world teaching your children identity. And even a father, it's his duty to protect his children,
And
protecting them from harm. Satan, I say this a lot, Satan in homes where the dad isn't present, where the dad isn't present and the mom isn't spiritually mature and strong, he runs rampant and has a freaking field day.
yeah.
He can manipulate your kids, he can get them at school, somebody molested your kids, someone did something that's going to traumatize them in one way, shape, or form. So kids do need their dads in their lives. It's one thing if the dad doesn't want to be there. It's another thing if the dad is willing to be there, but you're not letting him be there. It's another thing if the dad is trying to be better, but you keep holding his past against him, when he's trying to be better. Because sometimes us men, we can be in environments trying to change, but we're surrounded by people who bring out the worst in us. So you get the worst of me because that's what you bring out, because you're not mindful of your ways. And it's easy to point the finger and point the blame at people and not own up to your own responsibilities, your own faults. What you've done, what I've done to make you mad, what I've done to make you react a certain way. Am I taking ownership of that, or is it just your fault?
Mhm.
relationships, it's 50-50. Marriages, it's 50-50. It's not just the husband's part, and then he's the make it or break a deal whether or not the relationship thrives. It's like, no, what about you? What about your part? Are You said it in the last video, are you nagging? Are you always nagging at your husband? Are you, if he's gone out the house for 16 plus hours working, trying to provide for his family, he comes home and he's tired, and you're nagging at him because you want him to do more, but he's physically exhausted. Like, he doesn't have the strength, but you want him to muster up the strength, because you're also tired. So I think to make the claim that all children don't need their fathers in their life, it's not true.
I
That's
I think
harmful too.
I think her situation, she was already divorced. She was already separated. So it had nothing to do with the kids. So because what she said is after the separation, after the divorce, she decided to separate her kids from their dad.
Mm,
So that to me, because I also agree a father brings identity, I wouldn't be able to do that. Because
yeah.
like you said, regardless of whatever, is going on here, we still need the spiritual leader, which is the man,
Hmm.
to be able to give those kids identity.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you can't just remove the father out of the picture
Hmm.
because it has nothing to do with what's going on here.
Yeah.
You know, dad still needs to be able to be dad to them
Hmm.
unless he decides to remove himself.
Which is a
But
different story.
as women, I mean, we can't be the ones to decide, "Hey, I'm going to take you out of the picture because you trigger me."
Yeah.
Which is what she was saying.
Hmm.
She took the dad out of the picture because he triggered her, even
Yeah.
after the separation, after the divorce.
Hmm.
Like, once the separation happens, all right, cool. It has nothing to do with me and you.
Hmm.
So Grace says, I'm going to remove my feelings, my emotions out of the way. And I'm going to give you grace so that you can still father your children and still be able to be in their lives so that they don't become another statistic in the system,
Yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
So I think, I mean, I have a whole different belief when it comes to divorce and separation and all that. But
Yeah.
as far as this video, from what I understood, you can't just decide to remove someone out of your kid's life because you have no emotional control over yourself. And
Hmm.
I mean, that would come. She says that she has a great relationship with God. A great relationship with God, in my perspective, it would be knowing your identity and knowing that whatever this man is saying to you
Hmm.
isn't facts, because God says this about me. God says,
Yeah.
and knowing your identity, that's why it's so important, because you'd be able to co-parent out of that place. You'd be able to, put your feelings aside and put your kids' feelings in front and say it's sacrifice. It's what we were
Hmm.
talking about in the last video. Love sacrifices.
Yeah.
So love for my kids is going to sacrifice, you know, whatever I'm feeling, whatever's going on between me and you, so that they can still have you in their life.
Yep.
You know, the fact that they were already separated, or no, they were already divorced, is, it's sad, but that should never trickle down on the kids.
Yeah.
The kids should always be able to see Jesus between you and your ex spouse or whatever.
Yeah. There's a scripture I want to read that came to mind. To the married, I give this charge, not I, but the Lord. The wife should not separate from her husband, but if she does, she should remain unmarried, or else be reconciled to her husband. And the husband should not divorce his wife. To the rest, I say, I, not the Lord, that if any brother has a wife who is an unbeliever, and she consents to live with him, he should not divorce her. If any woman has a husband who is an unbeliever and he consents to live with her, she should not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is made holy because of his wife, and the unbelieving wife is made holy because of her husband. Otherwise, your children would be unclean, but as it is, they are holy. But if the unbelieving partner separates, let it be so. In such cases, the brother or sister is not enslaved. God has called you to peace. For how do you know, wife? How do you know, wife, whether you will save your husband? Or how do you know, husband, whether you will save your wife? She says that that woman said that her relationship with God is strong. My question is, well, why didn't you invite him to come to church to grow close to God too? Like if you were an unbeliever and I was a believer and we were married, my faith would make you and our kids holy, right? So that means that you guys would all be at peace with God because of me. In a sense, I would be like the bridge. I'm not the bridge. We know Jesus is the bridge, but as far as our home is concerned, I would be that bridge. It's for you guys and the kids if you were a non believer and I was a believer. So why not invite him to come to Christ, to come to church so you guys can both work out your differences and grow and try to work past, your differences and become better, not just for your relationship can be over. Okay, that's between you and God, but what about the kids? The kids need their mom, they need their dad, they need both of you guys. Our kids need us. Earlier today I was sitting at the table eating, and SB and Amar, even when I was in the room, playing the PS4, they sat right next to me and they wanted to be so close to me. And, you know, I just stopped and I just looked at both of them and I'm like, I am so important to them. I look at them and they're like they're kids. It's my daughters, but I can easily take that for granted and just be like, oh, it's my kids. But I stopped and I was like, oh my gosh, I am so important to them. Like they smother me and they want to be so close to me and they fight for that position to be next to me. Everywhere I go, they go. I'm sitting at the table eating, and they're just there and they're looking at me and they're saying, "Dad, look," and they're looking at my mannerisms and my just how I'm positioning myself. If am I mad? Am I annoyed? Am I watching them? Am I smiling? Am I laughing? When I do this thing where I wink at them and I just acknowledge them and I let them know that I acknowledge them, and that means so much to them. Imagine if they didn't have that.
Yeah, and that's why I said like
Imagine if I was out of the picture.